And one thing that might help someone with that is humility, which is something you're a big fan of.
Yes.
And that's a key cornerstone of our investment culture here.
Yeah, good.
You're also a fan of Pitter, I believe. Yeah. And I just wanted to read a quote from him.
Yes.
Humility is an enormously important quality. You can't win without it. Survival in the end is where the winners are by definition. And survival begins with humility. Can you reflect on that a little for us?
Oh, well, that's a great quote from Peter. I have a lot of respect for Peter Bernstein. First of all, it kind of goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. You can't succeed if you don't survive. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite adages is, don't forget the man who was 6 feet tall, who drowned crossing the stream that was 5 feet deep on average. Mm-hmm. The concept of surviving on average is irrelevant. You have to survive every day, which means really that you have to survive on the bad days. And so that's why I say you have to arrange your affairs, which means your financing or your capital from your investors, whatever it is, or your portfolio, so that you can survive on the bad days. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. But humility, it's all about humility. You have to, Dirty Harry said a man has to know his limitations. Mark Twain said that when you know something for certain, you can get into big trouble. It's absolutely the truth. And, nothing in our business is certain. And anybody who's certain is really missing the point.
So, and we say something similar to how you say it, which is that we always have to know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And when you and I had that prep call, we competed with each other about how much we knew that we didn't know. Yeah. But you won because you've been knowing what you didn't know for longer than I'm not knowing what I don't know.
But it's I wrote 2 memos in the middle of the pandemic, in probably June of 20, called Uncertainty and Uncertainty 2, mm-hmm. talking about the importance of how uncertain things are, the importance of acknowledging that, especially to yourself. We have to be honest with ourselves. And there's something called intellectual humility, mm-hmm. which I think is extremely important. You know what that means, intellectual humility? Very simple. The other person could be right. Mm-hmm. And if you go into a discussion and say, with the belief that the other person could be right, you're going to have a much more productive discussion.
Sometimes it's harder to be humble when you're losing, actually. When you're winning, you can be humble and it looks very gracious, but when things are working against you, sometimes it can be more difficult.
No, I think
what do you think?
I think it's hard for most people to be humble
at any time,
because they have these defenses that mm-hmm. that require them to overlook their flaws mm-hmm. and their limitations. If you look at human endeavor, I believe strongly that success carries within itself the seeds of failure, and failure carries the seeds of success. Mm-hmm. What do you learn from success? I can do it. I can do it again. It's easy. I can do it in other fields. I can do it with more money. I can do it alone. It was me, it wasn't the team. And these are horrible lessons. So I think that success teaches terrible lessons because it plays to our egos.
Ego, yeah.
And I think you learn more from your failures, and hopefully you learn humility.
One last question on this is that how do you balance the importance of knowing there's incompleteness of knowledge with the fact that ultimately you have to make some decisions because you're managing people's money?
All these things are about balance. Mm-hmm. If you assume you know nothing, you can't function. If you think you know everything, you're going to get in trouble. You have to strike a balance, and hopefully it's an appropriate mm-hmm. balance. Think about confidence. Mm-hmm. If you're an investor, if you don't have confidence, then every time you buy something, if it goes down, you're going to sell it because you're afraid it's going to go down more, and you're going to be an abject failure. Mm-hmm. You have to have confidence. You have to, if you buy something, it goes down, you have to reassess your thesis, and if it's intact, you have to buy more, or you can't be great. But on the other hand, if you have hubris and you feel you can't possibly be wrong, and every time something goes down, you blindly double down, then you're probably going to get into trouble and maybe be asked to leave the industry. So you have to have this balance: confidence, but not overconfidence; humility, but not overhumility.